All right, I call this meeting of the Magnolia Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been duly called and that the notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Opens Meeting Act, Texas Government Code 551. Everyone, will you please stand with us while Sonia leads us in our invocation.
It's been our long-standing tradition to pray before these meetings, so if you wish to pray with us, please bow. Father God, this is a special time of year. We have parents and we have children up here. And, as we are entering a special time of year, please bless these children that are in this room and the parents. Many of them will be traveling. Also, please bless all the students and families that will be coming into Magnolia. We have a lot of students that have graduated and will be returning to their homes. Please bless them for their safety and look out for them. It is that time of season. It's very special. And in your holy name we pray, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. If everybody remain standing at this time, I'd like to have our students of the month, Alexa Hayes of Magnolia West High School and Catalina Cooper of Bear Branch Elementary to please come forward and recite the pledges, followed by the Student of the Month presentation. Alexa, if you'll start us out first with the U.S. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the
Texas flag. I pledge
allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you both. All right. I guess we're going to start with Alexa. I think so. Alexa, come back up here. And Mr. Morley.
Thank you, Dr. Stevens, member of the school board. I have in front of me Alexa Hayes. She is the Magnolia West High School Student of the Month. A couple things that you need to know about Alexa. First of all, she and I have a love relationship. She loves to come by and tell me her ideas on how to better run the school. And I love the fact that she does it every single day. I want to read you a quick bio, and then I'll talk a little bit more about Alexa. Alexa moved to Magnolia West as a freshman in high school from California. In the 4 years she has been here, Alexa has built many relationships among her peers, become involved in multiple activities, and ascended into leadership positions. Alexa is invested in our dual credit program, anticipates obtaining 18 credit hours by the end of the school year. She's been the class president as both a junior and a senior. She has participated on the soccer, track, softball, and volleyball teams. She was a team captain on the volleyball team this year as a senior, and has also been named second team All-District for the past 2 years. Alexa earned an athletics and academic scholarship to Lamar University to further her education and volleyball career. As class president, Alexa is held in high regard by her peers. She organized Magnolia West's first senior sunrise event where over 350 of our 460 seniors arrived at the ranch by 6:15 a.m. to watch the sunrise as a class. Alexa volunteers at her church, coaches a youth 10U volleyball team on Friday evenings, and works at Potbellies in the Woodlands in her spare time. Alexa will be majoring in political science with a minor in criminal justice. She plans to pursue a career with the FBI, specifically in their forensic lab unit. After her FBI career, Alexa plans to be the President of the United States. Alexa's parents, Lester and Christine, have been tremendous supporters of our school. Ms. Hayes is here, right back there. Thank you. She has 3 older brothers. Trey is a professional soccer player. Christian is a second lieutenant in the United States Army working as a tank instructor. Seth is a college football player currently in the transfer portal. Alexa's older sister Jordan is currently working on her bachelor's degree with plans to attend law school. So what a magnificent family. So here's the thing about that I'm most impressed with Alexa. So in today's society, it's very hard to fit in. And she comes here as a freshman in high school from another state to another community to another school and is working on finding new peer groups. So the easy thing for her to do would have been just fit in. Or let me find that one peer group and I'll be cliquish and I'll just hang out with them and I'll be okay. Instead, she has risen to leadership positions. She is she's junior class officer, senior class officer, and is a tremendous leader. And Alexa, you have my utmost respect, and I hope one day I get to tell her how to run the country.
Dr. Stevens, Board of Trustees, Bear Branch Elementary School is proud to present Catalina Cooper as the December Student of the Month for Magnolia Isd. Catalina is the 9-year-old daughter of Angela and Chris Cooper, and she is in 4th grade. Catalina is a student that represents our school and district well, both inside and beyond the classroom. She is an honor roll student that excels in all of her classes, including the Gifted and Talented REACH program. Catalina has been involved in campus extracurricular activities such as Girls on the Run, Greater Houston, and Battle of the Books. She volunteers for numerous campus activities, and her leadership and selfless service can often be seen as she greets students entering the campus, raises and lowers flags, and delivers office folders to and from classrooms. Catalina's teachers, which I've got to point out, all are here tonight. Catalina's teachers describe her as an energetic burst of excitement who is always up for the challenge. She is principled, knowledgeable, and caring. Catalina works well in groups with her peers, motivates others, and yields productive results in all that she does. She is driven, settling for nothing but her best. Catalina greets everyone with a smile, and her leadership shines through in everything that she does. Catalina's friends describe her as kind, always there to help, a good friend and motivator, and always happy and positive. One of Catalina's classmates, who also participates in Girls on the Run, said that she keeps us all moving during our runs and encourages us to keep on going. Another said that she enjoys sitting by Catalina at lunch, but that she smacks too loud while she's eating. Outside of school, Catalina is heavily involved in sports, where she participates competitively in softball and track. She plays pitcher, outfield, and first base. This past June, Catalina qualified for the Amateur Athletic Union, or AAU, Junior Olympics, where she ran a 31.85 in the 200 meter, placing 52nd out of 108 runners from across the nation. Most impressively, this was her first year to run. She participates in the 4x1 relay, 4x4 relay, and of course her favorite, the 200-meter dash. Catalina's favorite subject is math. Favorite book is Ribsy by her favorite author, Beverly Cleary. Her favorite food is Chick-fil-A. Favorite ice cream is Bluebell's Cookies and Cream. And favorite thing to do on the weekend is spending time with family and friends at softball tournaments. She has a dog named Max, but is patiently waiting for her grandfather to buy that pony that she has always wanted. Catalina wants to be a doctor, specifically a surgeon, when she grows up. She draws her greatest inspiration from her mother because she has such a kind and forgiving heart. When asked what advice she would give others, Catalina did not hesitate in saying, DBA, dream it, believe it, achieve it. Once again, congratulations, Catalina Cooper.
And then on behalf of America's ER, each of our students of the month get a Target gift card.
So guys, y'all are going to be Always amazing. All right, Dr. Garza, I think you're here for Teacher of the Month.
Okay, good evening. It's my pleasure every month to do this award, and so our MISD Teacher of the Month for the month of December is Miss Amanda Dara. Miss Dara is, go ahead. She's got a big fan club here tonight. She's joined by her husband Ty, her daughters Emma and Abby, and her teammates and counselor and academic coordinator and APs. She's just a really good teacher. Not only is she a good teacher, she is a leader on campus. I've seen that in some meetings that I've been in this year, and she's willing to try new things. And Connie just, gushes about her all the time. This is her 18th year in education, 10 years with us. She's a team facilitator for 6th grade ELAR, and just has a great attitude, and we are blessed to have you on campus. Yes, on campus, sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Garza. Well, it is absolutely my honor to share with you the dedication of Miss Amanda Dara. It is evident when you walk in her room, her drive and her dedication to her students. She absolutely believes that every single student in her classroom can achieve at high levels. Amanda also serves on our campus. She may not realize this, but we consider her one of our model classrooms. So when we have teachers who are looking for new strategies, or perhaps they're struggling with something, she's one of the first people we say, you need to go watch Miss Dara. Besides that, she holds a couple of other responsibilities on our campus. One of those is on our Teaching and Learning Committee, where she works closely with our academic coordinator, Ms. Camesso, and several other teachers, and they're developing a playlist for our campus where teachers can go and click and look at different teaching strategies or different activities to use in their classroom. Additionally, as Dr. Garza mentioned, she's our team facilitator, and she is guiding her team to that collective pursuit of excellence for her students. Everything she does is about achieving great results with her students. I do have a few things to read from some of your colleagues. So Ms. Sutterth said that this recognition is well-deserved. You have expertly guided our team through muddy waters of ILOs, flex days, and scheduling complexities of cross-grade peer observations. You always come prepared to our PLC with a plan A, B, and even C. She said something about you bringing muffins. I must have missed that invitation. Your leadership is kind, committed, and exemplary, and we are all better educators because of you. Ms. Kaiser said that Amanda is the definition of a servant leader. She goes above and beyond to not only serve her students, but all 6th graders, teachers, and the administrators at BBI. She's always looking for ways to grow as an educator, and she is a leader on our campus, and she is thankful to work under your leadership. So thank you again, and I present to you Mrs. Amanda Dara, Teacher of the Month.
I just always spent my days with teachers, and I would watch their every move and admire them. I would go home, have all my stuffed animals lined up, and play teacher. Like, I've always wanted to be a teacher since I was a little kid. My students know I tell them all the story all the time, but I actually really love math. It's my favorite subject, even though I teach reading. And I would find myself frustrated just because math came so naturally and easy, but I was a struggling reader. I can relate to those students, and I tell them all the time in class, like, this doesn't come naturally. It does now that I'm an older person, and it sounds like I'm just able to answer these questions, but it takes time, and it could take years sometimes before the light bulb goes off, and that's okay, because we all have our moment at some time, and they know that, and they can relate to me. And it may not be language arts for them, but I tell them you may have another subject also, and I'm willing to help you with any of those things. Today we're actually doing a passport activity that they absolutely love and adore. They get to break the article down into bits and pieces, so you have a struggling reader who it's easier to just do a section at a time, and they get to have that immediate feedback, and so they love it. We're going to pretend to be on a plane. The lessons aren't what's important. When I look at my younger self as teaching, it's those relationships. It's the time that you're spending with them. At the end, they're going to learn something, but they're going to remember your kindness, and they're going to remember the fact that you sat down with them and worked with them, even if it's on the one skill main idea for the whole entire school year. They didn't get your whole curriculum, they're going to have walked away with something.
I just continue to come back year after year because it is the job that you get the biggest fulfillment out of, and you know that you're making a difference. And every year I try to get better, I try to grow, and I want to implement those new ideas year after year.
On behalf of MEF, Ms. Dara, congratulations for being our Teacher of the Month for December. We have some wonderful items for you. A lot of things to hold. All right, I'm gonna give this to you.
Teacher of the Year kind of has to give a speech. We thought maybe that might be we could try that out with our Teacher of the Month with this group. We got a good audience right here. Hey, congratulations. We're so proud of you.
All right, Mr. Quinn, you have a great honor tonight.
President Adcock, members of the board, Dr. Stevens, I do have a great honor. We've got some great young men here tonight that we get to recognize. And I have the easiest introduction possible because I get to introduce the man, the myth, the legend, and the greatest director of bands on the planet, and a Christmas gift to you. Everybody needs a little Bob Medina for Christmas.
I love this guy. Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Don't mind me getting my notes. We've got a good-looking group of fellows here. Now stand over here, please. All right, come up front, come up front. President Adcox, thank you. Dr. Stevens, ladies and gentlemen of the community, thank you so much. I'm Bob Medina, Director of Bands at Magnolia High School, and our team these past 5 years have done some incredible things for our students. And we couldn't have done this without our continual support from our board, our incredible community, our sponsors, our boosters, our parents, and we strive for the highest level of artistry. We've got some band kiddos over here too. We're super excited. But let's brag on the kiddos. So as part of the music education process in Texas, and Texas leads the nation in music education. It is an incredible state to learn. And long story short, in addition to all the group activities that we do with our concert band, our marching band, our jazz combo, the newest group, or the New Orleans group that we've got going, we also have the individual aspects, and that's why these gentlemen are here tonight. There are 3 here, but we really want to honor 4. One of them is a previous commitment, and what I'm talking about is the all-region process. This is where students are given music in advance. Texas has the finest all-state musicians in the nation. And every fall, over 70,000 children throughout Texas begin the audition process, and when it's over, about approximately 1,000 of those kids end up in San Antonio in February for the all-state process, and one of 18 all-state ensembles. These gentlemen here have done a 4-step process. First of all, they decided to undertake this challenge. And the 4 gentlemen that we have here is a 2-year all-stater on bass clarinet. He doubles on oboe. He's our woodwind captain in our marching band, and he is an aspiring jazz artist on tenor saxophone, although he plays alto saxophone, lead alto in the jazz ensemble. And this is Cole Maney. He came out first chair at all region. He came out as an area qualifier and finished 11th in the state of Texas. Cole's parents are Lee and Colleen Maney, good people back there, super good people. They have a wonderful daughter named Karis, and who plays great tennis. Just a great family, and they really pour their hearts into developing these kiddos of theirs. It's wonderful. Like I said, he's a 2-year all-stater, so he made all-state his freshman year on bass clarinet and his junior year on bass clarinet. And he was hoping to kick it all the way into gear with tenor saxophone this year. And if you've heard him play, He's fantastic. And although he didn't make All-State Jazz, he also made first chair All-Region Concert Band, is an area qualifier in concert band, and will be auditioning for All-State Concert Band, hopefully for a three-peat in January. Cole Maney. Andres LaRosabal is not here with us, but Andres is currently our principal trumpet player in the band. He's one of our marching band brass section leaders in the trumpet section. Before I go one step, let me go back to Cole here. He does one more thing. I can't believe I forgot this. He also plays second tenor in the Jazz Houston Youth Orchestra, and that is a new group that was founded by Vincent Garner, who is the lead trombone player for Jazz at Lincoln Center based in New York City. Vincent lives here in Houston, but goes to work in New York City. One of the finest trombone players in the world is his jazz director at Jazz Houston Orchestra, and it was an incredible audition process, and Cole plays second tenor in that group as well. Attaboy. Andres LaRosabal, who's not here with us, is a senior trumpet player. In addition to his role in the marching band, he also plays trumpet in our Wind Symphony. He also made first chair in All-Region Jazz, an area qualifier. There were 122 that got to the top of the area slot, and they only took 10 to all states. And even though Andres didn't make it, he came in the top third in the state of Texas, which is quite impressive. And Andres also plays in Jazz Houston's Youth Jazz Orchestra, and he is the lead trumpet player for that group. So Andres LaRosabal, yay. This good-looking fellow next to Cole here, the one that's always smiling. You probably recognize Mr. Tristan Berger. He carries a big old bass drum 5 in the marching band, and that is no easy task. And he's a left-handed drummer. Attaboy. But everything in the percussion world is drafted off of your right hand. But he's left-handed. Tristan made first chair All-Region Jazz Band, is an area qualifier, and this is his first time to qualify to the state audition process, and he learned and gained a valuable amount of knowledge. But he plays drum set in our band. He is a state gold medalist in the solo and ensemble on 4 mallets on vibraphone. This kid sometimes beats me to the office in the morning because he just wants to practice. He's an incredible, incredible young man, and I'm telling you folks, if you've never played percussion right-hand lead and try to do it as a left-hander, it tells you the kind of dedication this young man is and has. And his parents are right back there, good people. Mike Berger and, oh my gosh, Melissa. I always call her Mrs. Berger. Mike and Melissa Berger, they're back there. So we appreciate what you do for Tristan. And he drives the coolest little car. He's got a little Mini Cooper. But it fits all his percussion stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, Tristan Berger. Last but not least is Mr. Smiley on the end. His name is Aiden Clark, and Aiden is a joy to work with. He started marching in drum corps after 7th grade. That is practically unheard of. But he just wanted to try it out. He's that kid who just wants to try things out. So he earned a contract to march a drum corps after his 7th grade year. After his 8th grade year, he got 2 more contracts after that. But you know what's happened these last couple of seasons. And so that's just what he does in the marching season. He is a low brass section leader. He plays euphonium and trombone. He also plays in the Jazz Houston Youth Orchestra under the direction of Vincent Garner. Aiden is a junior along with Tristan, and Aiden plays lead trombone in that group. I will say, just on a side note, there's some great programs around our area. I mean, if you know about the music programs in Houston, there are some great programs. One of them is HSPVA, and of the 26 kids, that's not correct, of the 22 kids in the Jazz Houston Orchestra, 18 of them are HSPVA kids. 3 of them are ours. And of those three, 2 of them are lead players. So in addition to all that, Aiden said, hey, I'd like to try out for All-Region Orchestra on trombone. I said, but you're a euphonium player. He goes, well, I'll just try. And he did, and he says, but I want to go the 6A route. You know, we're a 5A school, right? So he just for funsies, decided to go try out, and he came out in 12th in region orchestra, which is awesome. And then he's like, yeah, and I want to try out on the region level as well in 6A, just for funsies. And so there are so many kids in the 6A process, they have to split the audition into 3 days. The 5A does it in one evening, the 6A do it over 3 days. Phase 1, he went into a room with 40 euphonium players and came out first chair. Yeah. And when it was all said and done, he ended up in the top band, sitting third chair in the 6A all-region band this weekend. But prior to that, we're talking about jazz, right? And he's a euphonium player, but he decided to play some jazz trombone, so he also came in first chair in all-region. He also is an area qualifier like the rest of our gentlemen here. Do you notice everybody that we've talked about is first chair in the region band? That's awesome. And we don't have a private lesson program for jazz here. We do this all in-house. We all have a love and desire to learn America's art form, and we work hard. All of our kids work hard to understand the complexities of our language. And after it was all said and done, Mr. Aiden Clark not only made the region and area bands, he also made the all-state jazz band, playing second tenor in Jazz 2. And that's quite the accomplishment. He is the first, as far as our research shows, he is the first Magnolia ISD student to capture a seat in the Texas All-State Jazz Band. To put things in perspective for what these gentlemen have accomplished, in this great, ginormous state of ours, up until 7 years ago, they only had one jazz band. So they were looking for 2 saxophone altos, 2 tenors, 1 bari, 1 pianist. And then after years of us going, hey, we're in a big state, there's some really good players out here, they were kind enough and they said, oh, we'll have a second jazz band. So we now find 2 pianists that are out, you know. So the trying to get all these 70,000 kids narrowed down and then to thread that eye of the needle in the jazz world is very, very challenging. But I just wanted to brag on our kids. I shout at the top of my lungs every chance I get how Magnolia is an incredible place, and the support that we have from our administration, our staff, our parents, and our students believing in the artistic process. We've got some good things going on. Ladies and gentlemen, Cole Maney, Tristan Berger, Andres LaRosabo, who is not here tonight, and Aiden Clark. Aiden's parents are, where are they? There they are, Brandon and Michelle Clark. Great, great people. So thank you, moms and dads.
One final note I want to point out. You notice that he talked about no private lesson instruction in jazz. Who's their teacher?
I'm gonna retract that statement. We have a wonderful jazz trumpet player that teaches Andres. He's awesome. Other than that, my staff and I work with the kids.
Yeah. So if you want to hear some jazz music every day at 9 o'clock, third period, the master works with these group of kids in the jazz band. Great, great, great opportunity to go watch fun learning. So congratulations to these men. Thank you guys for allowing us this opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Medina.
Bob, I just wish you could get a little more excited about the band program. It would help us a lot around here. We really appreciate you and what you've done. Great kids.
All right, I think you're up next.
I am up next. Well, we have a real treat here tonight. Tonight we have the 9th rendition of the superintendent's leadership group here in Magnolia ISD. So over the last 11 years, we've produced 9 groups of juniors and seniors. Now, this is a mixed cohort. These are juniors and seniors because COVID is kind of hamstringed us last year, and we kind of lost a year in it. So we're rebounding now, and we've got 2 groups here that we're trying to get it. Their first year, normally the junior year, we tour. We get a chance to see a lot of leadership in action. We do a particular sort of cued into elected leadership. and we look at it at the county level. We look at it at school board level, and we did that tonight. We just recently had a trip to our state capitol and had a chance to kind of watch the legislative session as it wound down from the last special session, have the chance to talk to some of our legislators and talk about that legislative process as it happens in Washington, in Austin. And it was an interesting session. And but they're getting to rub elbows with a lot of elected leaders. Now, usually when we meet at the school board, this is kind of, sometimes it's the graduation, it's the culminating event, and I have a chance to graduate them, but we still have some sessions left to go. This, I think if we have worked the phone right, Ms. Myers, that in our next session, they're going to have a chance to actually take a strengths assessment, which will give them some insight to their leadership strengths that they will hopefully be able to use maybe for a lifetime in some of their careers as a part of that assessment. And then later on, they've got a session with our leaders in the business community that will talk to them about leadership there, in the corporate world. So we're just excited about them. We kind of want to indoctrinate them in the idea of leadership matters, and that at some point out of this group, and maybe even some of the other groups over here, we may have some elected leaders, maybe even a president of the United States at some point. We're going to set our sights high in Magnolia ISD. And if they don't wind up in elected leadership positions, at some point, the next goal is they're going to be great citizens and be able to take a leadership role as a citizen in our great democracy in our country. So we're proud of them. We're proud of their accomplishments. I think a lot of things you get to hear to some of the places that they're going to go. It's pretty amazing. And so I'm excited about them. So let's have the entire cohort 9 to stand up. And let's give them a round of applause for where they are. They're not finished yet. Some great things to come. All right, y'all must sit down. And I may just have to, I think out of the 9 different groups that I've had, this may be the best group I think I've ever had a chance to work with. And so, I mean, they're pretty amazing, so I'm not, but anyway.
I've only heard that, just once. I've not heard that 9 times. It's really special for you guys. Before we break, a couple of things. One is, the room was not exactly just decorated for this board meeting. I think we had a special visitor in this room, did we not, that came and ho, 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 and Merry Christmas. And we had about half of the Magnolia community here for a breakfast with Santa that was sponsored by our amazing Magnolia Education Foundation. And it was a first-time event, but I don't know, I'm sure there were well over 1,000 people that came through here and visited with Santa. So Christmas could be really good in Magnolia if Santa paid attention to all the requests that were given up here. So that's awesome. The other is we're going to have a break. Obviously, for folks that want to leave, you're more than welcome to at the break. The second half of the meeting is more the business end of the meeting, but it's also when folks from our community that have something on their heart that want to speak are more than welcome to. So if you want to hear what's heavy on folks' hearts, then you're welcome to stay for that too. So with that, we'll break and we'll have a...
Quickly before we break, these, for those of you who were not here the first month we got these, this year our floral design students are bringing floral designs for us for decoration up here, and I think those kids should get a round of applause too, because look at that. That's amazing.
Well, all right, so we're going to break. It won't be 5 minutes, but that's the whole idea of it, and then we'll come back and start again. All right, we'll get started back up. Denise, do I have all of the people that signed up? All right. So at this time, we'll go into the audience participation portion of the agenda. Participants must have turned in a request form 15 minutes prior to the start of this meeting, which I have here. Participation is limited to 3 minutes. Any complaint or charge brought against an employee by name opposition for which resolution has not been sought in accordance with policy should be pursued through the district's grievance policy. Please note the Board of Trustees shall not deliberate, respond, or make decisions regarding any subject that is not included on the agenda that is posted. So at this time, Ms. Russell, you're the first one. Ms. Russell is a MISD resident.
Good evening and Merry Christmas. I'd like to put my little Buddha right here. Presently in my Sunday school class, we're studying the book of Ezekiel, where God had called the prophet to warn the Israelites and the exiles of the consequences regarding the sin of idolatry. In Galatians 1:8 of God's word, it says, "But even if we, or an angel from heaven, should preach to you a gospel contrary to that we have preached to you, he is to be accursed." Sadly, today our public schools are leading our children into practices by the false god of Buddha. I stood before this school board in 2016 about the IB program organization itself promoting the Buddhist practice of mindfulness. As with all information I brought to this board over the years, the sentiment and defense by the board is that this does not happen in Magnolia ISD. We are a conservative district. I have a copy in this pile of papers here of a 5th grade teacher's webpage promoting the mindful classroom. This particular teacher also is working on their Master of Spiritual Formation, as well as taking online classes at mindful schools. I have a copy of one administrator parental newsletter where it asks the parents to download many free mindful apps on their phone and device and dedicate 5 minutes a day to silent mindfulness as a family. In this high school newsletter I have here by a student, there's an article on the practice of mindfulness written by a student. When children are exposed to Buddhist mindfulness, they are being indoctrinated with the idea that they have ability to save themselves from whatever ails them by emptying their minds or observing thoughts without judgment. This is a dangerous path this district has set these children on. Mindfulness is a practice by a false god incorporated in your SEL curriculum by Castle. In Mark 9:42, God's word says, "Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for him if a heavy milestone hung around his neck, to be cast into the sea." I just ask the district to look into this mindful practice, which is Buddhism, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. Next, we have Ms. Susan Scruggs.
Good evening to the board members and to Dr. Stevens. I'm wondering where American exceptionalism is taught in Magnolia ISD and what classes the children have about how extraordinary the founders of our great nation were. How they argued and argued over the writing of the Constitution and finally came to a consensus to establish the greatest Constitution ever written and implemented into a nation. The reason our nation is so great is because our Heavenly Father helped the founders create it. America is unique in that we believe, and it is written in our Constitution, that freedom, liberty, and justice apply equally to all. We have a unique system of government that is a combination of democracy and a republic with 3 branches which provide checks and balances to each other. We have freedom of speech, which is eroding every day. We have freedom to worship in the church we choose as long as the government doesn't lock us down. We have freedom to work hard, start a business, succeed, and improve the status of our lives, or fail and begin again. We have freedom to pursue our dreams no matter the circumstances to which we were born. This is the land of opportunity, and thus everyone is trying to get into our country, as you can witness by all the videos from the southern border invasion. So why would you even consider watering down our great history and accomplishments to brainwash our children about global citizenship. This denigrates our country and moves the children from exceptionalism to conformity. We do not want IB taught in the great schools of Magnolia ISD or anywhere else in our county, state, or country. I'm asking you folks to shut down this expensive, unnecessary, unwanted United Nations communistic program. You must swallow your pride and do what's right for our children by standing strong and rejecting this indoctrinating program. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scruggs. All right, next we have Kenneth Evanist. Am I close? Okay, Ernest. All right. Not a Magnolia resident.
I'm here to present a resolution that was passed by the Republican CEC, which is the County Executive Committee. I am a precinct chair, and there are 100 chairs within the county. So I'd just like to read this and make you aware of it. So the resolution reads, whereas the Republican Party of Texas platform states in Plank 98, tax-funded lobbying, we opposed using tax dollars to hire lobbyists to pay dues to associations that lobby the legislature. By the way, I'm sorry, the resolution is entitled, it's a resolution on Texas Association of School Boards and Texas Association of School Administrators is what I'm speaking about. The second, whereas the Republican Party of Texas Platform 146 states gender identity, the official position of the state Texas schools shall be there and only two genders, biological male and biological female. We oppose transgender normalization, curriculum, and pronoun use. Next, whereas the Republican Party of Texas Platform 62 states right to free speech. We resolve that free speech shall remain free, that opinions may be spoken, recorded, printed, published, and shared without censorship or reprisal, and that Congress will ensure that individuals' rights to free speech will not be infringed upon with unconstitutional laws defining hate speech and hate crimes. Next, whereas the Republican Party of Texas Platform 138 states, we reject critical race theory as a post-Marxist ideology that seeks to undermine the system of law and order itself and to reduce individuals to a group identity alone. We support legislation to remove this ideology from the government programs, including education involving race discrimination and racial awareness, to facilitate the appreciation of our American identity and the contrast between freedom and tyrannical history and socialism, communism throughout history must be taught. Next, whereas the Texas Association of School Boards and Texas Association of School Administrators promote Marxist ideologies and critical race theory, aka cultural relevance, social justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'll skip to the last couple because I'm going to run out of time. Therefore, let it be resolved, the Montgomery County Republican Party Executive Committee calls on Montgomery County school districts to stop funding Texas Association of School Administrators and Texas Association of School Boards, which we believe ultimately works to the demise of our American core principles and values. Last, therefore, it is resolved that the Montgomery County Republican Executive Committee calls on the Texas state legislators to take action through legislative means and enacting laws according to the Republican Party of Texas platform and stop taxpayer-funded lobbying through the Texas Association of School Administrators and Texas Association of School Boards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ernest. All right, at this time, I think there's a report.
We do. Who is our MISD demographer, and Ms. Murray is relatively new to the district, but she's not new to demographer work, and we have relocated her from her previous district over here to Magnolia and finally got her to the best district. But she's been working with us, and we came to the realization with the amount of growth that we're seeing within our district that although we worked with Mr. Bob Templeton and Templeton Demographics, and they do a fine job, we needed somebody on a everyday basis to be tracking the growth of subdivisions and kids and parents moving into this district, because it's so volatile and it changes almost every day that we have. And so it's important for us to have that information to make informed decisions about future buildings and attendance patterns and other things. So she's done a fantastic job of trying to get a handle on all this information. So we've got a dual report tonight. Ms. Murray is going to give us some information, and then Mr. Templeton is going to zoom in with us and kind of tell us a little bit about the state of Magnolia ISD and the growth that we're experiencing here. For some reason, everybody wants to be in Magnolia ISD, it seems like, Deanie. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here, Board, to speak with you for the first time. Again, my name is Deanie Murray. I'm the newly hired long-range planning coordinator for Magnolia ISD. I actually moved here about 6 years ago, but I've done this work for about 16 plus years in another Montgomery County fast growth school district. So I look forward to working with you and the district to navigate the changes that are coming. I'm going to introduce Mr. Templeton and let him do his report, and then I'm going to come give you some just general information. So at this time, Mr. Templeton will be joining us by Zoom with his presentation. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you, and good evening. Bob Templeton, formerly Templeton Demographics, now we are on to education. I've got our fall update, and I'll touch on the enrollment patterns for this school year, and you'll notice that you had a very strong year for enrollment growth. The enrollment as of October was 13,678, which is an increase of about 556 students. And some of that enrollment growth is no doubt a bounce from last year's COVID impacted drop. All across the state of Texas, we saw a significant drop in enrollment, and Magnolia was no different last year with a little bit of a drop in enrollment, and that was related to the pandemic. It was primarily in those elementary grade levels that we saw this drop across the state of Texas. The growth this year was very strong at kindergarten, first, second, third. These are some of the largest elementary class sizes that we've seen in the last 5 years. So very good return enrollment growth this year. Part of that, as I mentioned, is a little bit of a bounce from last year's COVID impact, but it's also a surge because of the increase in housing activity. I want to touch on the economic conditions across the region, and you'll notice the unemployment rates, which had a huge jump when we had the pandemic from March of 2020. And the unemployment rate shot up to over 14%. They did drop pretty significantly over the last several months. Presently, we're at about 6% unemployment in the Houston region. This is a little bit of a outlier number, because what we're seeing is there's a significant portion of the labor force that has not returned. So these unemployment numbers are a little bit misleading, because just about every industry is struggling to fill jobs. And it's no different in retail, transportation, hospitality, even education is struggling to fill a lot of those jobs. Now, the housing market has been the real surprise from the pandemic. And this graph illustrates the new home starts for Magnolia ISD and the closings. We track this data on a quarterly basis. And you can see historically, we were building roughly 400 new homes per year. And then in 2018, it shot up to almost 500 starts. 2019, it increased. And then look at 2020, where we had almost 1,000 starts in the year of the pandemic, year to date. And that's about through the second quarter, We were at 714. The annualized number is now well over 1,300 new home starts that we're seeing in the school district. Now, the other thing that's happening, which is a little bit challenging, is the increase in the prices. So the new home market is so hot and strong that the average new home price has gone from $235,000 in 2010 to over $300,000 is the price for a new home in the district. The existing home prices are also shooting up at very strong rates. It's a combination of a shortage of supply. It's also the increase of cost to materials, the shortage of labor in the construction industry. All those are causing the housing prices to go up. Now, we do track the data for all of the Houston region for new home construction. Right now, Magnolia is ranked 11th in the region, the Houston region, based on annual closings. We've started over 1,300. We've closed over 1,000. We have 1,468 vacant developed lots. Those are lots that are on the ground, ready for builders to build. And then we have 17,800 future lots. Future lots are future phases of existing developments, and there are also some new developments that are in the early development stages. That does not include the ag land that has not started any development activity. So a tremendous amount of futures and vacant land will put the district in a position to grow for more than 15 years. We're really looking at about a 20-year horizon for very strong growth. I wanted to give you a comparison to what we were seeing a year ago. Second quarter of 2020, the annual start rate was 713. Second quarter of 2021, so a year later, it's increased by over 600 additional new home starts. So a very significant change in the level of activity within your school district. We track closings, and closings have also seen a very strong jump. It is taking longer to finish homes. So what used to take builders about 3 to 4 months to build a home, it's now taking them 6 to 8 months. And again, it's the shortage of labor and some supply chain problems that are causing the increases in the construction time. Now, I wanted to give you just a real quick way to look at where the strongest amount of activity is taking place. This is a thematic map based on annual closings, and we've mapped your top 10 most active subdivisions. The top 10 account for about 86% of all of the activity. The largest blue circles are those subdivisions that are starting more than 100 homes per year. You can see the North Grove development right now is your most active at 142 annual closings. Williams Trace is second at 136. And then we do show the age restricted just so that you can have an idea of the number of homes that are being built in the Del Webb, the Woodlands portion. We know that it has no impact of students, but it is giving you an idea of the number of homes that are being built in the district. So the highest concentration is in the Williams Elementary Zone, building more than 200 homes annually. Also the Smith Zone, also in that red category of building more than 200 homes. And then the dark orange elementary zones, Magnolia Parkway, the Elizor zones, they're building more than 100 to 200 homes per year. Now, the next slide is when we look at where the vacant developed lot distribution is highest. It's that Williams zone. So the Williams zone is seeing the most activity. It's also got the most vacant developed lots right now. We've mapped your top 10 subdivisions based on vacant developed lots. The Audubon has delivered a section, and they've got about 270 vacant developed lots. You can see the Williams Trace has got 221. So just in the top 10, we've got almost 1,300 vacant developed lots in these subdivisions that we've mapped on this slide. Now, the futures are where the growth is headed. So you can see it is heading to the west. It's heading further into the Williams Zone and the Magnolia Elementary Zone. Those elementary zones have more than 2,000 future lots. And keep in mind, about 1,800 to 2,200 lots equals about an elementary school's worth of growth. So a tremendous amount of future activity that is starting to pick up the pace in the development. The Audubon has recently delivered. They've got 270 vacant developed lots. They do have a significant number of homes that are under construction. Now, the district has moved a portion from the Williams zone into the Magnolia Parkway zone. So that section is being moved between the Williams and Magnolia Parkway. Here's how the data shakes out based on your elementary attendance zones. The Smith zone, most active, 438 annual starts. The Williams zone is the second most active with 380 annual starts. Magnolia Parkway, 171 annual starts. So very strong activity in roughly 5 zones. The Nichols Sawmill zone, 106 annual starts. And then we've got the Bear Branch zone with almost 90 starts. So very significant activity across multiple zones. Now this next map is just kind of to give you the big picture. These are your elementary attendance zones. Those green shaded areas are active subdivisions that are building new homes. The yellow are the futures. You can see we've got about 31 actively building subdivisions. There are 14 future subdivisions. Of those future subdivisions, we've got about 1,012 lots that are in development. And that's indicated with areas that have a red outline around the green shaded areas and the yellow shaded area. That's indicating that that's where the bulldozers are, that's where the earth moving is taking place, and the developers are working to deliver lots. And roughly about 1,000 lots will be delivered within the next 6 to 8 months, further indicating that this housing activity is going to continue to surge and go up. Some of the highlights, I'm not going to go over all of these active subdivisions, but some of the main ones, of course, Audubon. We've been talking about Audubon for several years. It represents about 6,137 total lots, 270 lots that have been delivered. There were 38 homes under construction during the second quarter when we did the research. There's groundwork underway on about 150 additional lots, which will be delivered shortly. That price point starts at about 250 and goes up. The current yield is a little high because we've got some early students that are already coming into the district. It's yielding about 1.143. Next, we're going to look at Mill Creek Estates, 586 lots, 54 homes occupied, so it's also in the early stages. About 48 homes under construction. They finished 34 recently. They've started 139 homes and closed 54 in the last 12 months. There is groundwork underway on 72 lots. That price point is 240 up to 305,000. This yield is low because it's such a new development. It's 0.74 students per home. We expect these yields to get closer to 0.5 to possibly 0.8 students per home over time. Next, we're looking at Magnolia Ridge. It's about 1,277 total lots, 170 vacant developed lots, 37 homes under construction during the second quarter. And that price point is 140 to about 330, and it's probably going to be closer to the 300 price point range. That yield is 0.537 is the yield in Magnolia Ridge. Magnolia Reserve, 225 total lots, 31 homes under construction. That yield is about 0.503, a little higher price point, 385,000 up to 600,000. Williams Trace, over on the edge of the district near the Waller ISD's boundary line. It's 563 total lots, 221 vacant developed lots. They've started 97 homes and closed 136 homes in the last 12 months. That price point is 245,000 up to 310. That yield in this neighborhood is 0.946 students per home. Now, some future activity. The Escondido Estates, it's 572 future lots. The groundwork is underway on 150 lots. Completion of the first homes is estimated this spring, so April 2022. Could see some families moving in. That price point starts at $350 and goes up. It is split between the two elementary zones of the Magnolia zone and the Williams elementary zone. The Mustang Ridge, which is just next to Magnolia West High School, it's 240 total lots, 3 homes under construction. The groundwork is nearing completion on the 97 lots, and that price point is $220 to $282. The Enclave at Dobbins is 248 lots, 12 vacant developed lots, 48 homes under construction. They've started 49 homes during the last 12 months. That price point is $230 to $280. The yield is 0.417 students per home in the Enclave at Dobbins. And then we've got Mill Creek Trails, 375 total lots, 250 future lots. It's also in the early stages. They've got about 69 occupied homes, 35 homes under construction. They've started 104 homes and closed 69 homes during the last 12 months. There is groundwork underway on 125 additional lots, and that price point is $230 to $315, and the yield is 0.464 students per home. Black Oak, 389 total lots, 6 vacant developed lots, 8 homes under construction. They've started 68 homes and closed 80 in the last 12 months, and that yield is 0.482 students per home. Now, North Grove, about 1,213 total lots. There were 114 homes under construction. They've started 217 homes and closed 142 in the last 12 months. They also have groundwork underway on 150 lots. The price point $275 to $725, so a very broad range of housing product there in North Grove, and the yield is 0.512 students per home. Now on the multifamily side, we've got a little bit of multifamily activity we're tracking. The Magnolia Lights is 131 multifamily units. It's in the planning stages. It's in the Magnolia Elementary Zone. It does include some retail sites as well in this proposed development. The Magnolia Village is about 300 multifamily units that are in the planning stages. These apartments are planned directly behind the Parkside Magnolia East development, which is also a mixed-use development that would include some office and retail, possibly some light industrial sections, the Parkside Magnolia East. Now, just to give you an indication of the yields that you're seeing in the multifamily across the district, we've got about 622 students that are residing in roughly 2,836 multifamily units. These red dots illustrate those areas that have the highest multifamily yields, yielding greater than 0.45 students per unit. Now, we are tracking some RV development as well as some manufactured housing communities. We've got about 424 units that belong to these manufactured housing communities, and we're seeing some RV parks that are starting to generate very low numbers of students. We've got an additional 705 multifamily units that exist in the district, but these belong to age-restricted communities that do not impact the district. The average yield across the district is 0.219 students per unit. Now, here's the results of our geocode for this fall. We geocode your students each year, so these do represent those students geocoded to their addresses. We've got about 438 students that are residing outside the district, and the overall yield across the district for single family is 0.58 students per single family home. The apartment yield is 0.184, and the manufactured home yield is 0.417. Now here's the projections. Now keep in mind, this is the grade level projections. Last year you can see that drop, which was because of the pandemic. And again, it happened all over the state of Texas. And this year's bump, so a little bit of that can be attributed to the return of the pre-K. You can see the pre-K did jump back close to where it was prior to the pandemic. We've got the highest numbers in those younger elementary grades that we've seen in the last 5 years. Right now, the 9th grade is the largest class, and the 8th grade is the second largest class. But we are continuing to forecast about, 4 to a little over 4% growth. So we do believe that the district is going to see at least almost 600 students per year for the foreseeable future. And when we get to years 6, 7, and 8, it could climb to even 800 to 900 students per year. Now, here's the impact at the campus level. We've got your capacities built in here. We're showing that when they get within 5% of capacity, that's when they turn green. And you can see that it's the Williams Elementary Zone and the Magnolia Parkway Zone. They are approaching capacity, and they will be within 5% within that 2-year window. And in the 24-25 year, that's when Magnolia Parkway could get to about 969 students. And in that year, we would have 2 additional campuses, which is the Smith Elementary Zone and the Williams Zone, which would still be within 5%. At your 5th grade centers, 5th and 6th grade intermediate schools, we've got both intermediates or 5th and 6th grade campuses within that 5% range in the 2025-26 year. At your junior highs, both junior highs would be within that 5% range in 2025. Your high schools, in pretty good shape for about 7 to 8 years, but you can see the approaching facility challenges that you're going to have multiple campuses that will be approaching capacity within the next 2 to 3 years. It's truly not a matter of if these numbers are going to happen. It's a matter of when, and we'll be watching the housing market very closely to see if there's any changes in the rate of construction. Key takeaways. Magnolia ISD's enrollment did increase this year by about 4.2%, which is growth of about 556 students. We had the highest number of home sales that we've seen in the last several years, with over 2,250 total home sales. That includes existing home sales and new home sales. The number of new home sales have steadily increased since 2016. And since 2010, the average new home sale price has increased by almost 29%. We have 31 actively building subdivisions, 14 future subdivisions. There is groundwork underway in over 1,000 lots that will be delivered within the next few months. We do expect your enrollment will exceed 16,600 students in 5 years, and in 10 years, your enrollment could be at about 21,000. I know that was a lot. Got through that pretty quick. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Bob?
Unfortunately, going to get off pretty quickly because I am in the waiting room for another board meeting that's about to start as well.
Of course, this is the best district you're doing this one for at this point, so we won't even bring up the name of the other district. It might be, but board, any questions?
We've got 13 board meetings tonight that all of our consulting team is handling, and it's a combination. I know this doesn't apply to your district, but we're doing single member district for those school districts that have single member districts. That's also under the timeline because those have to be adopted before the end of the year for many of those districts.
Goodness.
Well, don't hesitate to send your questions my way. I'll be happy to respond with any questions that might come up.
As always, Bob, it's very thorough, and we appreciate it. And we'll let you get back to your next presentation. We appreciate your work.
Thank you. You bet. Bye now.
Are y'all overwhelmed yet? It's a little crazy. I'm just going to, the report really came through the second quarter, and since the second quarter there have been some changes. So I'm just going to highlight the very active subdivisions and talk about some that are future on his slides, but they're here now. Okay. only have 4 slides, so it's going to go quickly. So we're going to talk about the east side of the district, and purple on the far right is your North Grove. North Grove is about 40 to 45% built out at this time, so we're still going to see kids there, students for the next foreseeable future. I'm looking at some past data and some current data to see where we're at. From this area, most of it is secondary students, so that's where a lot of your growth for Bear Branch, middle school, junior high, and high school and stuff are coming. There's 4 other smaller areas on the east side of the district. There's the Black Oaks, which he talked about. That is about halfway completed. The home builder that was in there, Ralph Coleman, they are completed their lots and they have sold, or the rest of the lots are being picked up by another builder. And we have the Mill Creek Trails, which he talked about, and that still has a lot of area that they are developing and not ready, so we do have some homes in there and it's moving fairly quickly. One thing about the enclave of Dobbin that he did not mention is about 50% of those lots are duplexes. So you can buy the duplex, one side of it or the whole thing, so it's kind of weird how that has set up, but we do have students out of there. There's another small community area, Creekside. It's 97 homes, and last time I was out there, they were doing dirt work, and there were a home coming out of the ground, but that's been a few weeks since I have driven out there. And again, all of these are in the Smith Elementary Zone. Okay. Let's shift over to the west side of the district. To the far left of your slide is your Williams Trace. He had said that there was like 221 vacant developed lots coming. I spoke with the gentleman about a week or so ago, and he says they have a little over 100 lots left to sell. So I would expect to see that development winding up in the next year or so as far as growth and developing. And then I have, let's see, that was Williams Trace. And then we have the other one right above Williams Trace in the purple is Empire Communities. That is a new development that is starting to come around. They should start the dirt work, and that's going to be about 700 homes. Other than that, I really don't have a lot of information on that. Let's see. And then on the right of that screen is the Gleno Subdivision. Again, that is, they still have some lots. They have an area that they're fixing to open, but that should be coming to an end in the next 1.5 to 2 years. The central part of the district, this is where we see a lot of the growth. This is the Williams Zone and some in the Magnolia Zone. You have the Mill Creek Estates. At this point, we get about 60 students out of there, and there's about, 100 homes that are occupied, just kind of driving and counting. It's kind of hard to drive yourself and count both sides of the road, but so that neighborhood has sold quickly and has really grown faster than even the developer and the home builders in that area have thought. Then we have the Audubon Creekside, which is just a little small area. There's about 22 homes occupied. In October, we had 9 students at Snapshot. Today we have 20 students out of there. So in 2 months, 6 weeks, we have doubled our student capacity out of that particular neighborhood. Then he talked about the Magnolia Ridge, which is going to be ongoing. They're developing, but they're developing at a slower pace than some of these other developments. Then over to the left of that slide, you have the Escondido, and that is growing pretty quickly. They have model homes going. I'm having a hard time getting some information from them, but I did hear back from a guy this afternoon, so he's supposed to be sending me some stuff. Then you have the the Mustang Ridge, and that, and his slides that he was saying that there was like 3 homes being built. There's lots of homes being built. I can't see that we have students students out of there yet. I did try looking in the Versatrans transportation software today to see, and I wasn't seeing any. And then the last slide, you can see the High Meadow Estates is in purple. That they are opening up a new section for that. Don't have any real numbers. Our student count is not as high out of that neighborhood as some of the other neighborhoods. But up to the top, you have the Magnolia Springs. That is a Signorelli development neighborhood. That will be 1,900 homes. They have 135 vacant lots that should be delivered pretty soon, and you're going to see the model homes starting, and right after the first of the year, they're telling me February. And so they're saying model homes, and then we could actually possibly see students there by next school year, but they're expecting 200 plus homes a year to be built. And then the big swath of green where 249 goes through just this past week, and the community impact, there was the ARIA development came through, talking about that. It's 5,700 acres. Again, we kind of have that information. I've seen it on several other things, but it could be in the thousands of homes. It's twice the size of Audubon. So the ARIA development recently did a development in Conroe ISD, that Artavia off of Highway 242, and that's 5,200 homes. So they hit the ground running. So hopefully once they start here, we'll be able to get information and prepare in advance for the students that will probably come out of there. And then, any questions?
Is anybody, other than, that's a lot of growth, yes. I'd say that. Gary?
I've got just a question of if you have a sense of this. A lot of times when you make projections, nobody's got a good crystal ball, right? And so do you have any kind of probability assessment for these numbers, like P10, P50, P90? I mean, do you have a sense at all of what the probability of these projections are as you're putting them together? And if you don't, that's okay.
I can tell you my crystal ball is a little foggy sometimes.
Yeah.
I've been on point and I have been off point, but usually there's an explanation. And, I don't want to make that as an excuse, but Mother Nature plays a part in a lot of things. But my projections are right in line with Mr. Templeton's. Even for next year, I'm within like 30, 40 students of what he's saying. The further out you get, I say after 3 years, it gets a little wonky. So at that point, you're really just guessing. But we're a little off together the further out we get. But again, from my position, this is new. We're just utilizing some software. I'm still trying to learn my way around and everything. But I feel pretty confident of what's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years. I know I probably didn't answer your
No, that's good. Thank you. It's a sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just, because we've got to obviously have a long runway to
Yeah.
plan for these things, and that's why I just wondered if you had a sense of it. So.
So are you, in those further out years, are you higher or lower?
I'm a little lower, but I can say that I've been real tight with putting some projection stuff out there on some of the housing. I'm just not for sure about until I get confirmation from these developers or really speak with them. I'm a little leery to put some of that in the software. I hear a lot, but it's like I'm not seeing it. So I'm trying to make sure I speak with each developer.
Okay.
But yes, we're not far. When I say we're off, we're not like way off. And he's saying like 16.6 or something like that, I think in 5 years. And I'm like 15.8, 15.9.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we're
Okay,
way
so
off.
yeah, very close. All right. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much. All right, Eric, I think you're going to talk to us about health care.
Yeah, Mr. Adcox, I'll second that.
Yeah, as CFO.
So good evening, Board. Tonight I wanted to give you guys an update based on a new bill passed this past session, which will have some effect on what we can and cannot offer in the immediate future for health insurance purposes. Okay. Before we get into that, I'll give you just a brief background of somewhat inactive history for health insurance purposes. But going back to 2001, the board may recall, the state of Texas developed a state plan for Texas public schools via TRS Active Care. Okay. Now, at that time, they allowed districts to opt in or out of the plan, but ultimately, whichever choice you made at that time, you were locked in for eternity, so to speak. And then in the late 2010s, a couple of districts in West Texas challenged the ability to offer alternative plans in addition or supplemental to the state plan. And the Attorney General ruled, and the board will probably remember this because we talked about it a few years ago, ruled that districts had the opportunity to offer alternative plans so long as they continued to offer the state plan if they opted in 2001. Okay? So at that time, we took advantage of that. We worked through Region 12 Consortium to develop a self-funded plan to offer as an alternative to the state plan. Last year was our first year in that plan, and so it's sort of in its infancy stage at this point, but we're in year 2 right now. So then comes Senate Bill 1444 that our legislators passed to our benefit, right? And so we'll get into the weeds of the bill in just a moment, but basically it forced the bill forces districts to choose to opt in or out of the state plan. Okay? And you have to make that decision if you're going to opt out by December 31st for the subsequent plan year, which is 9/1. You cannot offer the state plan and another plan. Okay? And so, and we'll get into some of the reasoning behind that in just a moment, but that is the gist of Senate Bill 1444. Now, you can opt out of the state plan at any time, okay? But once you opt out, you have to be out for 5 years. So that is one of the mechanisms that they're using to sort of, make sure that their planning is accurate for funding purposes. And we'll get into some of the advantages of it in just a moment. So this is, straight from TRS. It does allow employers now to shop for coverage outside of TRS. So there is more flexibility in the fact that you don't have to offer the state plan if you opted in 2001 and you have the ability to offer an alternative. You can simply drop TRS if we so choose. Like I mentioned before, you can opt out at any time in the future, but once you do, you commit to being out of the state plan for 5 years. Okay? The new law, and this is from TRS, the new law means an employer that participates in TRS can routinely evaluate our options. One of the strides that TRS has made in the state of Texas in monitoring the state plan, they really had an aggressive communication with school districts over the past couple of years because many districts were beginning to offer alternative plan, and so they were losing a substantial portion of their participants. And so they listened to school districts, and we had many discussions, and they had regional meetings and so forth. But one of the changes that they made is they are going to, as of September 1st, 2022, they're shifting from a statewide model to a regional model, okay? In a concept, by doing so, you are able to focus on geographical regional rates that differ from one part of the state to the other. And again, in concept, what that allows you to do is to compare state rates to what you will likely get from self-funded plans and other fully insured plans and things of that nature from providers in your area, okay? Now, what does that look like? What does it look like? And so here is the end product at this time from TRS. And so you look across the state of Texas here, and basically you'll see Region 6, which we're in Region 6, and we get a zero, a 0%, which is good and bad at the same time. And so what that means is that we are right at state average in our area as it relates to claims and so forth versus the rest of the entire state in terms of normal claims for health insurance purposes. So as you look across here, any area or region that has a negative number means that those districts in those regions can anticipate a better rate than state average in the state plan going forward. And those that have positive numbers, with Beaumont area being the highest at 7%, can anticipate rates that are higher than the state average. Now, at this point, we don't know what the plan costs are going to be for next year. We do not receive that information until April, okay? But this new design, obviously, or honestly, I think it is in good faith. It's intended to regionalize health insurance for better comparison purposes. And again, we happen to fall in an area where, we're average. So, any questions on that? Obviously, guys, as we look at self-funded plans and even fully funded plans that do not have the stability of the state-offered plan, the liability increases substantially in terms of the fear of the unknown for stop-loss purposes in terrible claim years. And so what this chart depicts here, it shows the average increase in per member charges since 2013. Okay, so for the last 7 years, you can see for the state-funded plan, the variable was only 8% versus Texas self-insured employers at 24%. So obviously, there is some strength in numbers under the state plan. Any questions on that? Okay. So, obviously, by virtue of Senate Bill 1444, and it's not something that we choose to do in terms of timing-wise, but we must make a decision before the end of December in terms of the direction that we're going to go for next school year. Now, the good news with that is that, again, like I mentioned earlier, we have the opportunity to opt out of the state plan at any point in time in the future, okay, if we choose to go with the state plan for next year. And so the good news with that is, given Senate Bill 1444 is allowing districts to choose an alternate plan and not just of a supplemental nature, in talking with our third-party administrator and other folks in the insurance industry, we are fixing to see a heavy increase in competition across the state of Texas for those insurance providers who want to get individual districts and also regional co-ops and so forth. That makes sense. So at this point in time, obviously, when we compare state plan versus our current self-funded plan, we have the budget certainty under the state plan, we have the strength in numbers, and we have a well-established plan. In terms of our self-funded plan, again, it's difficult to project too terribly long past the immediate future because of its infancy stage. We're only in year 2. What we do know is year 1, we have one of the worst plan years for total claims that we've had in 6+ years. And so that is some of the volatility that comes with a self-funded plan. In terms of what other districts are doing, it's sort of all over the map. Conroe ISD has been with a self-funded plan since 2001. And so they opted out in 2001, and they are remaining with their self-funded plan going into next year. Tomball ISD has only ever offered TRS because they opted in 2001, and they're staying with TRS next year. Montgomery ISD has only ever offered TRS, and they've yet to make a decision. They're making one tomorrow morning, but I could not get the CFO to give me the info before the meeting, and rightfully so. We've looked at other districts across the state. It's sort of all over the map. Many of them, and some much larger districts, have been on self-funded plans for quite some time. And because of the volatility in those plans and the requirements to set aside millions of dollars for protection purposes, they are jumping off the self-funded plan and going with the state plan because of the budget certainty and the fact that many of their rates had sort of had increased to an unsustainable level. So that's sort of where we are at this time in terms of having to make a decision. You know, based on all things at this point, we believe it's in the best interest of the district to opt in to the state plan, which by virtue of default means that we would no longer be able to offer our alt medical plan, again, under the new law. So be happy to answer any questions.
I got a question. So if we go with the state plan, are you saying that would be an increase in the rates that our individual teachers are paying? And I guess the next question is, can you review what we contribute per employee, and maybe we should look at that before we decide on what we're going to do?
Dr. Moffitt, and those are great questions. I mean, the short is at this point we do not know what the state plan costs are going to be next year. We do know with the current that there are some favorable terms for premium purposes of our local plan versus the state plan. However, given the claimed year that we had with our self-funded plan, increases and some substantial increases are inevitable under the self-funded plan. So it's difficult. I mean, there are some very specific benefits, but in terms of, you know, the deductibles are very similar, state plan versus our self-funded plan. The premiums at this point are slightly more favorable under the self-funded plan. However, like I said, an increase in those rates is inevitable. And the second part of your question, I think, kind of leads into that, Travis. At this point, we contribute $350 a month per employee, which is slightly above average. It's higher than Tomball. I want to say it's almost exactly the same as Montgomery, and you can't really compare it to Conroe too much because they only have a self-funded plan. I can tell you, in looking at Conroe's self-funded plan, you know, versus what our situation would look like and going back with the state plan, it's very, very comparable in terms of what the employees are having to pay out of pocket. Now, that being said, given that whether we go with the state plan or if we were with the self-funded plan, and again, those inevitable increases in premiums are coming, I think it's extremely important during our budget building process this next school year that we focus on the employer contribution for sure. I mean, we're going to have to help limit the effect on our employees. And so that's something that we'll focus on. And obviously, we'll have more information in April when the new rates come out for the state plan to know kind of what we're looking at from that perspective. But again, I guess the other thing is, and I want to reiterate this, you know, they're forcing us to make a decision right now. And so that's unfair, but it's something that we have to do now. But again, a quick reminder, we have the opportunity in the future to change. And you know, should the state, you know, for lack of a better term, try to put it to us, so to speak, and continue to increase rates outrageously, I mean, we have the opportunity to opt out at any point in time. We just know that when we do, we're opting out for 5 years, unless they change something next legislative session, right? And so, like I mentioned, I don't know, I didn't mention this specifically, but there are some entities that are starting to scratch the surface of offering health insurance to school districts via co-ops and such, because they see the value and the competition is coming. TASB is one of them. They're working with, there's an established plan that's through Texas Municipal League, which has about 40,000 participants at this point. They are all city employees, and yet because of Senate Bill 1444 and the opportunity for districts to opt out, they are now working with TASB in developing a model, a fully funded model for school districts. So we could take the time, you know, and plan to go with the state plan next year, but take the time to do a full RFQ or RFP for health insurance purposes for the subsequent years. And in doing so, look at those that are better protected for the district's perspective, perhaps those that are fully insured versus self-insured. And so again, I don't want to give I don't want to suggest that making a decision now is going to change the world for us for years to come, unless we opted out, and then it will change in terms of being able to opt into the state plan for 5 years. So please know there is a safety net for us, and again, to Dr. Moffitt's point, I think it's going to be imperative that we focus on the employer contribution going into next year.
So do we know how often, when you showed that rate map, it looked like when you got to the high densities of population, it hung pretty close, single digits. And you got out in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden, it's a -14, it's a negative. And I'm just looking at the valley, -26. And in the last 2 years with COVID, the morbidity and mortality in that area was massive. So I find it hard to believe that they didn't have health care costs and that their costs were significantly less than other areas. So do we know how they developed those numbers, and do we know how often they're going to be trying to play with those? Because it sure seems to be bent. If you're out in the middle of nowhere, I guess sometimes you just don't get health care.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Mr. Adcock. I can't speak specifically in terms of how they derived at these numbers, except to suggest that they're looking at geographical information and claims from the insurance industry perspective. Now, how often they will update them, that's somewhat assumptive on my part too, but I assume that they'll be looking at it every year.
I didn't hear that answered.
Yeah.
But it is, as Eric said, it's claims,
Yeah.
and it's also the availability of medical providers and their willingness to adopt rates.
So I think there's some.
Obviously, given the short time frame that we have to make a decision.
Right. I think that's about it.
We've been talking with the legal team and other experts for the last several months, trying to make sure that we know, how to best interpret the bill.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave TRS extreme rulemaking authority for this, which means, if we do anything other than the letter of the law, it really could subject us to some negative things.
To your point, it sounds like, they chose the stick instead of the carrot method of getting us to move, and they're making you move.
Instead of saying there's a state plan, you can only do this or something else. We're going to give you the opportunity, but if you opt out, you're out for 5 years.
But to your point, even though if you opt out, you're out for 6 or 5, you can opt out annually.
Absolutely.
So if these numbers come back out and.
You just need to do it before December 31st for the subsequent plan year. Yes, sir. Which, again, gives us somewhat of a safety net going forward. I think it'll be interesting to see what other developments come from other entities.
I think you'll start seeing a lot of other choices.
Absolutely.
And they'll jump in and do it, I'll just say, more cost effective.
Leave it to the private industry to figure it out and do it the right way. So.
The fact that there were choices is probably what drove that bill. So I don't think the choices are going away.
And there are a couple of other districts that are in a very similar position than us that offer the exact same self-funded plan in Humboldt and Spring ISD. And as of this afternoon, they were undecided because they're preparing for their board meetings. But they are either in their first or second year of the plan as well, which creates a lot of questions this early in a plan. So,
For budgeting, it's the known versus the unknown.
It is. Obviously, the state plan, the only cost of the district is the employer-sponsored contribution, and that's known. Any adjustments, now, I guess regionally, claims could affect us in the future, but it's limited.
Right.
We've expressed our concerns up the ladder. The biggest concern is that we're making these decisions without any rates. And it could be that I think some of it's because the claims years are ending up on the calendar year, and they'll use those claims histories of the districts to determine what these regional rates are going to be. So we really are making and all districts are making these decisions with really we're not making it based on rates. We have to make it based on risk assessments, and I think, looking long-term, at least, where I say long-term, looking right now, the risk that we potentially have of opting out of TS for 5 years and taking our individual claim histories, particularly since we've had a horrendous claim year, and the thing that drives those rates more than anything else is your claims history.
Sure.
And we also have to take everybody that's currently on TRS, and we don't necessarily know their claims history at that point. We could probably get it at some point, but we just feel the safe play for the district at this point is to stay within TRS, to not have the volatility of the rates, and then to make decisions at budget time that we can mitigate by any additional dollars back into that to bring those rates to a comparable level for our employees and offer at least a plan on there that's as minimal cost as we can for our employee on a high deductible plan. But we can't tell you what that is yet, but we think we need to be within TRS at least for another, and as Eric said, we can shop and see what happens within the future in the market, because we think it's going to get competitive, and if we need to make it, but the 5-year thing, it makes it kind of interesting, and as Eric said, this TRS did appeal to the legislature, and this is a legislative action here, and it's basically that districts with good claims history were bailing out because they were getting favorable rates, and you can imagine what that did to the rest of TRS around the state. And so legislatures acted in what they felt like in the best interest of educators across the state of Texas to say, we'll still let you out, but you're going to really have to make some decisions. If you're going to go out, you got to go out with all of your claims, and you got to stay out for 5 years. And that did sort of change. And as Eric said, when they moved it to the regional rates, that does somewhat mitigate the fact if you're in a good claims area, you could go out besides, because TRS was just averaging those rates. Everybody got the same rate around the state of Texas. And so this regional approach, I think will certainly help. It makes it harder for you to go out and shop and get a better rate than TRS is going to give you. So our decision recommendation is that we remain on TRS, which actually takes no decision by the board. I think we have that as an agenda item, but really we really don't have to have any action because we are staying within TRS. Our action is administratively, and we're going to have to dissolve our relationship with CARE ACT.
It's interesting, though, that they chose like 2 of the most expensive healthcare years in the last, I don't know, my lifetime to set their rates on. So that's kind of a...
Well, so they're holding us hostage. And if you go one direction, obviously you're stuck for 5 years, the other, and you don't. Are we ever not going to be in the blind trying to figure out the best option? This time next year, we'll be in the same boat because we won't.
You're going to be in the same boat. You're going to have to maybe track your claims history, but that's the thing we have expressed up, that this December the 31st issue without being able to compare claims really puts everybody in the blind situation in making these decisions. And you know, quite frankly, I don't think they want us to know a whole lot about it to make it hard. But we have expressed that there needs to be some latitude to get us at least into the spring where we could get rates and make decisions at that point.
But everything I've read, there's going to be some competition coming around the corner. So we stay on TRS this year. The next year we look at it and say, hey, we can't not.
Yes, the individual providers, Dr. Moffitt, TRS, the state plan, they've sort of gone back and forth where it was Blue Cross Blue Shield for years and years, and then it was Aetna for several years, and now we're back with Blue Cross Blue Shield. But we're hearing that Aetna is obviously ready to get into the game again. So and they will. Cigna and other companies will, but to your point, Mr. Blizzard, I mean, we'll have enough time to look at our options.
Yeah. That's where the 5-year deal backfires on them, because the reality is, now if I'm Aetna, I know I've got you for 5 years. So now it's worth me looking at the market.
An RFP that secures it for many years, and we would want to know the cost and obviously bring the liability. But that's something that we will look at in the future.
Yeah, because anytime you're forced to make a 5-year decision in the dark, it's going to be bad, right? Now, next year, doesn't matter.
I do know there was some discussion, some of the things I've been talking to, that it could be that there are good claims districts in a favorable areas, or at least within the zero net areas, that might start working co-op situations, or where they pooled their people and went together in a co-op situation where, again, larger number of insured people, it seems to kind of mitigate the losses that you may have.
It will be interesting to see what TASB puts out as well.
Yeah, but we got to
make
move,
decisions.
yeah.
Or a decision to not make a decision,
Right.
to remain on TRS.
Yeah, they put you between a rock and a hard spot.
Yes, it did. It was a tough decision.
How many years did our administrators have to prepare students for the STAR test without knowing what passing was? So this is just kind of the way it works. Let's legislate it, and then we'll just wait and tell you what's good.
All right. Anybody else have any other questions? Yeah.
Sounds like you got to read the bill to know what's in it.
Yeah. No, you just sign them. You don't read them. Are you kidding me? All right, Eric. Thank you, sir. Jason, Dr. Bullock?
Mr. Adcox, Mr. Stevens, members of the board, over the last couple of months, we've been reviewing board goals. We've talked about, Dr. Garza talked about the area of curriculum instruction and goals the district has. Dr. Morris talked about finance and business office and some of our financial goals as a district. This month, we're going to go through 3 other areas with you. We're going to talk about human resources and some of the things we're doing to retain staff, kind of appropriate given our previous topic, and also student services, and then communication and PR. So Mr. Bell is out with a family member who's ill tonight, so I will be handling the HR duties here in just a moment. We'll start, I think, with Mr. Stewart in student services.
Good evening. Hopefully this will look the right way here. There we go. We're going to start with goal 3A, which is foster a safe, secure, and nurturing learning environment for all our students. And I'm going to go through a few sub-goals here. We're going to start with Magnolia Isd will continue to implement the Safe and Civil Schools program. This is a program that really is about structure more than discipline. It structures rules. It uses common language for classroom, grade levels, and schools. Susan McKinney's worked hard with spearheading this with our elementaries and intermediates and junior highs. It's really something we've driven on an initiative K-8. We believe it's going to start paying benefits dividends when you get to talking about developing schools and moving kids from campuses to campuses somewhere down the line based on our demographics report. Being able to take that same approach school. We're already seeing those benefits as we move kids move, buy houses. As you saw, we closed on a lot of houses. So we're already seeing benefits as kids go school to school by having language that works, processes that works towards a structural approach towards positive rules and positive behavioral expectations. Second goal we have is Magnolia Isd will expand its partnership with Montgomery County constables by adding an officer to work with administration to correct truancy issues. There's 2 parts of this goal. The first part, of course, is we work heavily with our constable office. We've enjoyed a 20-plus year relationship there. We currently have 18 officers at our campuses. We're the only district that I know of, even within a stone's throw of us, probably through most of the state, that have a constable that's present on every campus. It's one of the largest compliments that we get from parents in terms of school safety. They know somebody's there that can help protect the environment there. This year we added that piece with the truancy issue, and we had a lot of volatility with attendance rates due to COVID. People who, like COVID and want to stay home for 6 months. And we also had some issues with some health care that we had to address. But when it comes to truancy, getting kids there, we're just now starting to, after a lot of parental conversations, getting to where we're having an uptick in our attendance in the last 3 weeks. So that's been a real positive issue. So we now have 19 officers in the district with adding that truancy position. Magnolia Isd will continue to be proactive by providing training to students in how to report safety concerns, respond in emergency situations, and how to be good citizens. We employed a few years ago, working through how to prepare for active shooters and drills and things like that. We worked with a gentleman that has appeared in front of this board before, Jeff Hine, and his organization does a terrific job with our staff, with parents, with students. We've held parent seminars to work with explaining how we work in safety situations. And it's really done a great job with helping our kids kind of know the expectations. Where do I go? What do I do? And we think that we always want to knock on wood, never here in Magnolia, but we do feel that we are prepared, and that's always helps people stay out of those situations. We also added a piece of software called Anonymous Alerts, and that is used a lot, especially at our secondary campuses, where kids can report anything from bullying, which was originally why it was put in, but we get hotline tips on everything from this kid's vaping in the bathroom to can you please get that couple out of the stairwell. So it's really, the kids really use it well, and so do our parents. Our parents fill us in on things, and we go investigate. And a lot of times that's the starting basis for how we get to where we need to go. And it all operates on the idea that if you see something, you say something, it betters all of us by having a better place to be. The last one on this is Magnolia Isd will continue to be responsive to students' social and emotional needs through various counseling methods and by partnering with local agencies. We've managed to expand our counseling crew. We were able to add a counselor at our intermediates this year, so we could have 2. The numbers have just gotten to a place where it was required. So we now have 29 campus counselors throughout our district that work through a lot of staff development as far as how do we approach kids, how do we better kids. We have 8 school psychologists that work through our special ed department that both do student screening and analysis for 504 special ed purposes, but also meet with some of our kiddos and handle some very tough issues. We have 4 what you call social emotional learning counselors, and those are people who are dealing with a lot of trauma and a lot of kid issues that they're trying to work through things, and they are very, very beneficial. And we have 1 drug and alcohol counselor that meets with kids who either failed our random drug testing or kids who are at DAEP that are there for substances, and she works through that. So we've expanded that. We also work with some agencies in our county. Tri-County Health Department, it's ran by MHMR facilities and resources, but they do a lot with mental health. They interact a lot with our folks, and we were able to refer kids and families there. Montgomery County Say Yes to Youth is another organization. They do a lot with family counseling, and our counselors help set things up so that they can go into homes and work with families and reestablish some structures inside those homes. We also rely a lot on United Way, their resources, and to help fill needs that families have that's not just physical needs. A lot of times those are counseling needs, job needs that impact our community in a lot of ways. And then we work a lot with the women's shelters, and there are several of those, and usually when that's happening, there are things such as transportation that we're working through, and they have a litigation counselor that helps us work through things to protect kids through the process of some really challenging home environments. So we feel like we're in a place where we're getting to where we're able to respond to just about any crisis a kid may have for social and emotional needs. But those are our 4 goals. I believe Dr. Bullock's going to ask you at the end for questions. But either way. So if not, if you have no questions for me, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bullock. I think he's going to talk about HR issues.
You guys are free to ask questions like whenever you want. It's really your call more than ours. But anyway, to keep things moving, as far as human resources, let me turn this slide here. Our main goal is to attract and retain high-quality staff. Guys, I'm going to tell you it's a challenge right now. It's a challenge mid-year right now, and we're going to predict it's going to become more of a challenge as we head into next school year. Mr. Bell and I talked recently that, at this point, I've been doing this for a while. I've never seen anything like this as far as the environment for teachers leaving positions for reasons that really have nothing to do with school and just wanting to move to a different district. We're in a unique environment. Coming out of COVID, coming out of a pandemic, some of the family issues people are facing, and it's a trying time to try to find certified teachers, especially. Not to mention, we always fight the battle with bus drivers with a lot of positions that are hard to fill, but it's especially noticeable in the teacher ranks. We have some certified teaching positions that we've really struggled, not just to find quality applicants, but sometimes to find any applicants at times here in the middle of the year, which isn't in a traditional hiring system. Our Dr. Garza and I were just recently at Region 6 and the commissioners to administrators from all the districts in this area, and he kind of opened an open mic session to say, what are your main concerns? And I'll tell you, it's not just us. This is something that, and I don't just think it's our region, this is happening across the state. The commissioner's answer as well, according to the macro numbers, 35,000 teaching openings happen every year, and the universities produce 35,000 new applicants. I think that kind of misses the mark a little bit. I don't know that they're all physics teachers when we need physics teachers and, all of that kind of stuff, but we are noticing in, a handful of areas that it's getting pretty hard to find quality folks. So I think it becomes more imperative on us to continue to do these things to attract and retain staff. As far as a competitive compensation plan, this year the board is gracious enough to come forward with a 2% raise for staff and the incentive pay twice a year. That stuff is very popular and certainly helps us attracting staff. We have tried to do some things creatively, from an administrative end to get openings to resignations to come at a time of year that allows us to be on the front end of a hiring cycle when hopefully there are more high quality applicants available. Mr. Bell produced a resignation incentive program, which I know that may sound a little bit counterintuitive when you're thinking about retaining staff and we're encouraging them to resign, but what this is would be people who are planning to not be here next year anyway, and the sooner they will let us know, the sooner we can get in front of finding their replacement. So we had about 70 people take advantage of that on their way out the door last year, which meant we had 70 resignations in hand for our principals to go find teachers before spring, or I guess by March 31st, have those letters in order to qualify for the program. And I think it gave us the opportunity to go get great folks to replace those people as they came open. So we're going to continue to do things like that to help. I know Mr. Davies has done some things for bus drivers. We feed bus drivers breakfast every day, and some of those are things that don't quite add into maybe a compensation package, but they matter to people. So we're doing our best to stay competitive with area districts and even do some things that are a little bit different. The second bullet says seek creative and innovative solutions to recruit and retain quality staff. Just last week, my weeks are running together here at the end of the semester. Mr. Bell organized a group of about a dozen of us to get together and start calling it a think tank to, in his way, to start trying to think outside the box and be creative about what we can do to address this very problem. From staffing patterns to the way we use personnel, to even potentially what flexibility may be there for some of these hard to find positions with certification requirements. And you know, I want you all to know our goal is to put smart people in a room and try to get solutions that help us address some of this. So we're also looking at affordable insurance options. That's here on the HR list as well. You guys just heard about that at length from Dr. Morris. And so we'll continue to explore that stuff going into next year in individual district plans. The COVID testing center is something that we've had in place throughout the fall. We've kind of been having it open for fewer and fewer hours as the need has declined this fall. And this spring we will make an attempt to walk away from it for a little bit and see if a need calls for it again. But the reason we were doing that was to give our folks an easy way to get tested and get on our protocol to get back in front of kids, you know, so that we don't have to put subs in place. So these are all things we're doing to try to meet this goal in the HR area. Are there any questions I can try to answer for you?
I do have a small question about the counselors. I think it's fantastic that we've got this body of counselors to help with all the different kinds of needs that we have. And I know at one point, the line between academic counseling and that counseling was a little blurred. Is it brighter now? In other words, meaning we've got counselors set aside that only do counseling for the needs you just went over or Eric just talked about, versus academic counseling, career advice, that kind of stuff? I mean, is that the way we're set up now, or?
We do have some counselors that focus more on the social emotional needs and more of the non-academic guidance counseling in working with kids. But, you know, really, Mr. Blizzard, it's really kind of hard to just split it apart into, you know, separate job duties because, you know, kids are kids, and it's kind of like we've always said, you know, when kids are struggling, you know, the kids that's struggling in grades is usually struggling in discipline, is usually struggling in attendance, and it all kind of comes from numerous areas. So, you know, we want all of our counselors to be able to sit down and have a conversation with a kid if need be. But we do have some that focus more on being proactive and delivering some of the, you know, some of the group work and things that we do with kids.
Question for you. Do we actually ask our employees if they're happy and if they're going to stay? And I'm not being facetious, I'm being serious. I mean, because, and I'm speaking from someone who's a father of a first-year teacher.
Sure.
That literally this entire year, not a single administrator has spoken to her. Only one time has someone outside of her 3 people that are in her cohort ever reached down to her and said, hey, how's your class going? How's your lesson planning going? How are you doing?
Sure. So a couple things on that. One, I appreciate the question. 2, this spring we are going to be giving teachers some more formalized ways to provide feedback on just overall culture, and I don't know if you call it workplace health, you know, those kind of things, which all leads to job satisfaction, the kind of thing you're talking about. You know, am I happy with the job I'm doing? Do I have a voice? Those kind of things. And you know, Mr. Beck, I appreciate you bringing up you know, your daughter and her experience. Also, just for the record,
She doesn't work in
our district.
She doesn't? I know.
I was waiting for that.
No, I know. I mean,
I was waiting for that.
It's true, especially for first-year teachers. I think that's often the experience is, you know, if you aren't paired with a mentor teacher, if you don't have somebody in your corner, if you don't have an administrator that's taking a special interest in first-year teachers, you know, that's where you can end up in a hurry.
or do we even have a mechanism where other teachers say that, hey, this is what's going on with that teacher, and if we don't improve that teacher's environment, we're going to lose her?
Well, you know, we do have communication methods on campus, you know, from department chairs, from team leads that are supposed to provide feedback to administration, even if that individual teacher is uncomfortable going forward. But, you know, Mr. Duckett, I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you we could always get there.
Yeah, that's been That's been something, I know I brought it up too, Joe, because being in corporate America, you take one of those pretty much every year. I get judged on the scores of that. That's a part of my evaluation. It's a part of my compensation, to be quite honest, on how I score on those with the guys that report to me. And I feel like sometimes, you know, the teacher's voice, to your point, I don't want to say it's lost. It didn't ask.
They didn't ask, yes. I mean,
It just isn't asked. I mean, they have a voice there, and if they don't have that person that they know, that they feel confident going to them and saying, oh my God, you're not going to believe. If they don't have that person, then they do get lost because they just don't know who do you go to, and is there going to be, you know, any trouble?
and I think if you're a new teacher, someone even new to a district,
New ones for sure.
do you
need
know what's the right way to approach that situation if things are, you know, I mean, because, and this is just an example, but in our small company, when we hire someone, I assign 2 people to that person. And on a monthly basis, those 2 people have to come back and tell the company, hey, this person's either happy or unhappy. All right, tell me why. I mean, and we get that feedback every month. And then that gives us at least something to then go back to that person and speak to them and say, hey, you know, your cohort, your compadres think you're unhappy, and here's what they think is going on here. What do you think of that? And at least gives that person a chance to voice those issues or not, or say, no, that's off. But at least it's addressed. You know, and I'll be honest with you, that's, I think, the single most important thing we do to keep our folks is the people around them are the ones who are that kind of warning bell that say they're either happy or they're unhappy, or they're overwhelmed, or it's not going well, or, you know, I mean, many times the people around you can tell what's going on if they have an interest, if they've been asked to do that. You know, or quite frankly, we ask that of that same person. You know, we send out to our folks, you know, 4 times a year. How's your job going? Are you overwhelmed or are you underwhelmed? Are you bored? I mean, we have just kind of a random sample of things that we've determined, but it really does make a difference, I think, on how we keep our people. And I have no prior experience on how school districts interact with their employees. And you know, as you know, my daughter's with Tomball. And so it's the first time I've been able to see how a school district interacts or not. And that's kind of been her experiences or not. I mean, has gone, you know, weeks on end, months on end, without anyone ever walking in that classroom and having any feedback at all.
Well, I think that's unfortunate.
Oh,
And you know, from our end, Mr. Duncan, to your point, just, you know, as education in general, I don't think we've been near as formalized or near as intentional in our approach to this as you're describing, or as Mr. Duncan is describing in corporate America. You know, for educators, it's usually revolved around, you know, it's why we don't want teachers teaching in isolation. We want them to be part of a team. We want there to be other teachers that teach the thing that they teach. We want, you know, a 3rd grade team to work together so that hopefully those teachers can spot when someone's struggling.
Sure.
You know, but is it as formalized as what you're talking about? We probably benefit from some more of that, without a doubt.
I think the majority of principals have a mentor program for brand new teachers. It's not, we talked about that today, it's not formalized. We don't have a district cookie cutter approach, but I think that's best practice, and the majority of them have they may all look a little different, but the basic deal is to partner a brand new teacher with a veteran teacher as a mentor for that year. And as Jason said, the culture of our district is we work in teams. And so those professional learning communities and the teams that they work with also provide support for new teachers, because it is about how well we are collectively as a team moving kids, but it's also to gain some support and how you become a better.
And you might even look, I know in the pharmaceutical companies, because the people that train those folks have a day job. You know, they have a territory just like everybody else. The trainers that work with the folks, they get some extra compensation for that, because you're asking them to do above and beyond a daily, their day job per se, and, that's a way to get people to be excited about it.
Mark it down, stipends for mentor teachers.
No, but, you are asking somebody to essentially pick up another job, and it's not like they don't have a full-time job to begin with. And so, that's something that accomplishes two things. It gets some extra compensation in a person's hand, but it also gets somebody to step up to do it. And it's not just a, hey, would you? It's your job.
The other question I would have is, do we monitor our teams? And let me give an example of that. We have, once again, I'm only using the only example I know. She's a team leader and has to collect these lesson plans. Not once has anyone at that school ever asked her about any of these lesson plans. I mean, there's nothing that happens with them. I mean, whether done or undone, how would anybody know?
Well, Mr. Duncan, I'll say this, in my mind, that's akin to a teacher assigning homework and never grading it.
Yes, sir.
Or, hey, write this essay for me, and I never get around to giving you feedback. As a kid, you want to reinforce to someone that something doesn't really matter, that's what they do.
Yeah.
So, but no, as far as monitoring the teams, yes, we have campus administrators that are in and out of those team meetings on a regular basis. We have academic coordinators that is their life, is to be in these team meetings and to assist with the planning and then to provide feedback to administration, as well as district curriculum folks as well. So we do our best to keep our finger on the pulse there. So other questions on HR? Yes, ma'am.
Is this on? To keep your current employees, but what about a recruitment program where if you're a happy teacher in Magnolia and you attract, bring your friend, right? Is there any kind of program where to attract more of these teachers that we're needing?
Well, word of mouth is the best thing you have going for you, right? I mean, when people are happy where they work and they tell people they know, it's the best thing to do. As far as a formal way, I wish we could give them, however much off their next month's membership or whatever, as a finder's fee for bringing new teachers. But
we did that with our bus drivers.
Right.
Yeah. If you brought a bus driver in a district, there was I think I joked Mr. Davies. What was it, Joe? $500.
$500.
Yeah. If you could bring another bus driver in that stayed with their training, they got $500 finder fee. I was looking all over the place for one.
You get your 500.
Okay, I have a question. I know that we were given a directive to increase our bilingual teacher staff, which those have been unicorns for years now. And I haven't seen anything legislatively done to incentivize higher education to try to produce more of those. So are you guys, how is that being handled by districts in Texas who have been told to go out and find more things that don't exist?
We end up fighting with each other, right? It's how much of a signing bonus, how much of a retention, some sort of stipend that stretches over 2 to 3 years to encourage retention. It's an arms race.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of, I don't know that you're ever going to fully solve it that way, but you're constantly trying to stay either competitive or a half step ahead of the neighbors to get whoever's in this area. But when everybody's throwing signing bonuses, it sure incentivizes teachers in some of those high needs areas to move every other year. Especially when there's a lot of districts in the area and you don't have to move your residents, you can just, change where you work. It's kind of hard to combat that sometimes.
Well, there are people speaking to legislators currently telling them that they've created a problem, now where's the solution? So maybe something will be done on that, maybe.
Would be appreciated. Other questions? Okay, Ms. Myers?
Okay, good evening. So goal 3C, engage parents in the community through positive media. One goal is to increase social media presence and seek new mediums to reach the public. So a couple of things that we have done this year. One, we have joined Nextdoor. So Nextdoor, you're probably familiar with that, it's an app. Districts didn't have the option to be a part of that, and now we do, so it covers our whole service area. And we have approximately almost 32,000 members. And what we're seeing right now, as we're sharing stories, again, we just started that this year, we're reaching about 1,700, 1,800 impressions, meaning people are seeing it. So far it's been a positive feedback. The other thing we're in the process of doing this week, actually, we're looking at a new website provider, and so that's going to be a definite upgrade to where we're at right now, and we look to make a decision on that this week. So then next semester, we'll be working on transitioning that and then roll out a new website over the summer. The next one, MISD will continue to build partnerships with community organizations. A couple of things that you may have seen, CanRig right here locally, they have reached out, so we have been working with them. I know Dr. Garza is working with them from the curriculum side. We're working with them on bringing them in for some student leadership things, internships, jobs. That's been a great one. And then looking at some other businesses, recently Chill Milkshake just reached out, and they're giving everyone in MISD a free scoop of ice cream. So make sure you look at your peach jar. The other one is we are going to do a realtor forum. So as you heard, with all the moving houses, we want to educate our realtors. And so in February, we're going to be hosting a real estate forum here at the district where we can answer questions, talk to them about the programs that we offer, and really educate them as they're selling homes. The last one, MISD will increase utilization of community impact newspaper to inform constituents of timely information about the district. So something that we've done really is partnered with them. We know it's a trusted resource that everyone gets in their mailbox. So we've started typically their quarterly inserts that you probably have seen. They look like, this is the next one coming out. Quarterly inserts, which have been very well received. The other thing, we do print ads with them, different sponsorships when it's the education edition. We have monthly digital ads that can be seen on their website. And then something new that we're looking at providing is postcards. They can do direct mail for you. It looks like it comes from the school district, but they take care of all the printing and mailing. It's amazing. The other thing is adding those sticky notes that you see on the front cover a lot of times. That's something else we're going to be looking at for the future as well. And so the nice thing, as you can see on this slide, with all of that, Community Impact will send us the data, the statistics, and so we can see how many mailboxes it went to, how many people are viewing, and so that's been very helpful. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
I don't know whether to be honored or offended that all the questions came to me. Anyway, guys, thank you. If you have any final questions, we'll take them. But this sums up our goals for the year for you guys to know what we're focused on as a district and what we're trying to do to continue to make this the best district in the state of Texas. So I appreciate the questions and your attention. Anything finally you'd like to ask?
Nope. We won't do that to you next time, I promise. We like Denise. No, we like you too, but we like Denise better. All right. Moving on to our consent agenda. This portion of the agenda consists of items to be routine and will be enacted by one motion unless separate discussion is requested. Has everybody had a chance to look at consent agenda items A through H? Does anybody want to talk about any of those? Nope. All right, so at this time, I'll need a motion that we approve consent agenda items 8A through H. Motion by Joe, seconded by Gary. All in favor? Motion carries. All right, this next one, is it every year that we do this. It seems like I don't remember this every year, but we get ballots for the Montgomery County Central Appraisal District of Directors. There's 2 or 3 different apparently boards there if you go out on the web page. This one doesn't have anything to do with the actual value of somebody's property. I think it's more around how they operate. The organization. The budget. In general. And we get, I think we have 332, is that the number? Somewhere in there. 332 votes that we get, which sounds like a lot until you look at the big number because all the taxing units.
It's 5,000.
5,000. So we have 332 and there's 5,000 out there to be voted on. In the past, we've looked at either 1 or 2 candidates just trying to make our votes count, so to speak. If we were to take them across all of those, I'm not sure it would mean anything. I do know there's a person from the city of Magnolia that is on the ballot this time that I believe some folks know. Does anybody else have any other ideas on how we put those votes out? We have to decide as a group and have a resolution on how we're going to vote.
I mean, I would second the Doc Dancer and then possibly Adam Simmons. Maybe we could split them between the 2. I mean, I don't know if what I think that's, yeah. We've done either 1 or 2, it seems like, in the past.
Any way you want to split them up?
Yeah, just to try to at least have a significant number. And, you know, we are in Magnolia, so I like the idea of supporting somebody, you know, from Mag. Yeah, and everybody that knows Doc likes Doc. So, yeah. So, what was it? What were both the names?
Matthew Dancer.
Dancer. And what was the other name, Travis? Adam. Simmons. All right, so I will need a motion that we approve to pass a resolution casting half of our 300 votes to Matthew Dancer and the other half to Adam Simmons to serve on the board of the Montgomery Central Appraisal District Board of Directors. Motion by Joe, seconded by Christie. All in favor? All right, that passes. All right, Eric, I think we don't have to?
We don't have to make it.
All right, well then we don't have to do that. All right, so at this time, we will recess and move into closed executive session for the purposes permitted by pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071. The board will consult with its legal counsel regarding pending litigation in the matter styled AC ETL versus Magnolia Independent School District number 21-CV-3466 in the United States District Court for the Southern District of Texas. And we'll also consider and take any action on that. And I think we're going to go ahead and cover any HR and personnel issues at that same time, so we won't have to go back. So the board will also, in closed executive session, pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071, consultation with the attorney, pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.072, discussion of purchase, sale, exchange, or value of real property, and finally, pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074, any personnel discussions. We'll go to recess. But all right. The board will, we're back. The board will consider and take possible action regarding litigation in the matter styled AC ETL versus Magnolia Independent School District Court of the Southern District of Texas. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion. I move the board approve the release, compromise, and settlement agreement in the matter styled AC, CP, TT, TM, TB, RP, and CW versus Magnolia Independent School District, CA number 421 CV 03466 in the United States District Court, Southern District of Texas, Houston Division, and direct the administration to take all steps necessary to effectuate the agreement.
Joe made the motion. Anybody want to second it? Christie seconds. All in favor? Motion passes. Next, I need a motion. That's going to be real tough for y'all. I need a motion that we adjourn this meeting. Christie made the motion. Sonia seconded it. All in favor? 11:06.